Announcements. Good morning, Senators. I beg to report that I have received excuses from the following Senators. Senator the Honorable Mary Isaac, Senator Mauricia Thomas Francis, Senator Adrian Auger, who is out of state. I beg to report that I have received correspondence from the Speaker of the House of Assembly advising that the following bills were passed in the House of Assembly and forwarded to the Senate for its concurrence. Money Laundering Prevention Amendment, Citizenship by Investment Amendment, Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation Headquarters Agreement, Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment, Castries Constituency Council. I also beg to announce that since the last sitting of Parliament, His Excellency has been pleased to assent to the following bills. National Honours and Awards Amendment Act, International Business Companies Amendment, International Partnership Amendment Act, International Trust Amendment Act, Income Tax Amendment Act, Finance Administration Amendment Act, Customs Control and Management Amendment Act, Trade Export Promotion Agency Amendment Act, Tourism Stimulus and Investment Amendment Act. Last week, the Speaker of the House and I attended a conference in Ecuador on open parliament, strengthening parliamentary oversight and post-legislative scrutiny. The literature from this conference is available downstairs in our library. I wish to congratulate the Special Olympics team who won a total of 5 medals in the Special Olympics held in Abu Dhabi. The medals were won in the following categories: gold in football, gold in bocce, silver in 100-meter sprint, bronze in bocce, bronze singles, and bronze in bocce doubles. Let me again congratulate all athletes who represented St. Lucia as well as the administrators who accompanied them. The Pan-Caribbean Partnership Against HIV and AIDS, PANCAP, with support from the 10th European Development Fund, EDF, Regional Technical Cooperation Project, held a parliamentarians sensitization forum in the Parliament chamber on Thursday, 21st of March this year. Senators, I wish to take this opportunity to extend sincere condolences to Honorable Dominic Fede and family on the passing of his father and wish them all the strength and God's guidance. Statements by ministers. Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Tourism, Information, Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, responsible for culture and creative industries.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you in particular for the support that you gave us with the staging of our 40th anniversary of independence activities. The celebrations this year was a tremendous success, and I think the citizens responded in the way that as a government and Parliament we would have wanted them to respond. So we want to thank all our citizens and you for the tremendous effort you all made to make it happen for our country. We know the celebrations still continue, and of course towards the end of this year we're looking forward to another massive celebration on the 13th of December, which would bring the curtains down on the celebrations for St. Lucia. So we look forward to that with great anticipation. We will be delivering a global event, and we trust that our citizens can continue to stay with us on the course as we continue to celebrate 40 years of independence. Thank you.
Papers to be laid. Oh, wait back. Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Good morning to all senators. Madam President, I would like to echo the sentiments expressed on behalf of the Special Olympic team. I want to make a public apology to the president of the Special Olympic team for not being invited to the function. But I'm happy that he understood that it wasn't the direct involvement of the minister not to invite him. So he has accepted the apology, and I'm happy that he has done that. I also want to concur with you to wish Honorable Dominic Fede the very best, and that we keep him in our prayers. Madam President, I just want to make a statement on the impasse between the government of St. Lucia and the fire service. We all know what transpired, and we are all happy that the firemen are back, the fire officers are back at work. I'll try to explain. Before going any further, I want to thank the fire chief and his senior officers and those officers who decided that the country, the prosperity and safety of the country was paramount to them and reported for duty. They were able to salvage this country. Madam President, it is the right of every union or organization to fight for better conditions and for salaries. But we also have to take into consideration the manner in which we do so. The fire services falls under the Protective Services Act. And it was specific and deliberate that they were placed under that category. With the protective services, any injury a fire officer suffers, he or she will be compensated under this Protective Services Act. We have known the history of the fire service. We have known that the fire service has been neglected, and that we need to pay particular attention to that entity. But it is disingenuous on the part of individuals to say that governments of the past and present have not taken corrective measures to see that things get a little better for the fire service. I remembered very early that the Honorable Prime Minister at the time, Honorable Kennedy Anthony, did in fact make a concerted effort in providing top-of-the-line fire stations for officers, and he must be commended for that. Fire stations were constructed in Grosile, in Dennery South, Micoud North, Vieux-Fort, at great expense. This government came in, and we continued the good work by renovating the Soufrière fire station. We also gave the fire service a fire tender at Vieux-Fort International Airport. Again, the Labour Party must be commended in that they gave $1.5 million towards that equipment, and the St. Lucia United Workers' Party gave the other $1.5 million. We also then looked at the fire station in Babono. Although it was built under the St. Lucia Labour Party, there was no monies allocated to be able to have that station open. Again, the government took $1.9 million in making sure that the fire station was opened. During those years, last 2 years, Madam President, we have seen 80 officers being recruited into the fire service. We have seen over 50 promotions. And if you notice, Madam President, I'm not reading, I'm just saying it because these are things that are known. So I don't even have to read it. I can just regurgitate and tell you exactly what has been done for the fire service. 50 promotions has been done. 4 new ambulances, a cost of almost $1.5 million, was given to the fire service last year. So we have been working, and we are trying our very, very best to make sure that the conditions of the fire service comes to a standard where everybody is happy. I want to caution persons who are in associations that they should not compare themselves with others. And the fire service officers have made that mistake on a number of occasions by comparing themselves to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. This is unfair, and they can never really be compared to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. because every organization is unique. It's special and unique in its own way. So to compare the Nurses Association, the nurses, to compare the fire officers, to compare borderly and the police is not being fair. And we have to look at the uniqueness of each of the entities and deal with that. So I want them to desist from doing this. The government has given an undertaking, and with your permission, maybe I could read what we have decided that we should do. We have decided to put an oversight committee in place, and the composition of that oversight committee shall be: 1, the Deputy Permanent Secretary, Department of Public Service; Permanent Secretary, Department of Home Affairs; a representative from the Labor Department; a representative from the St. Lucia St. Lucia Employers; a representative from the St. Lucia Fire Service Association; the Chief Fire Officer or his nominee. And most importantly, that the committee develop and submit to Cabinet for its consideration within 30 days. And that's important, within 30 days, an action plan showing implementation timelines. And this is very clear. They were also said that we are going to a commitment to review the policy and procedure in the fire service regarding probationary employment and to implement the arrangements similar to what obtains in the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Madam President, when I was informed of this probation and they call it the there is an arrangement in the fire service that the first 2 years you are on probation, but every 6 months you were given a contract. And I was never aware of that. So when I looked at it and I discussed it with the fire chief, I told the fire chief that I felt that that was unfair, that every 6 months within a probation period that you would have to be looking at and giving those persons another 6 months after an appraisal. What happens there is that all 60 or 70 persons' names are sent to the fire chief, who has to peruse all these appraisals, and it takes maybe about a week or two. Then it's sent to the Ministry of Home Affairs. The very same thing happens there. Then sent to the Ministry of Public Service over and over again, and then sent eventually to the Ministry of Finance to pay. So sometimes a month and a half elapses and persons do not get paid. And that was really unfair. And immediately I was informed of it. I gave the undertaking that it would stop. And the very afternoon I spoke to the President, I did in fact send a letter indicating that this would cease immediately. So again, the government has shown its goodwill, and we intend to continue to work with the fire officers. But the officers must always understand that procedure is always important in everything that you do. The collective agreement says on which grounds you can stand when you want to take strike action. The Fire Services Act indicates that if you leave your employment for 24 hours without any lawful excuse, then you can be charged $150 or sent to prison for 3 months. These things are there. But we have understood what is happening, and we have allowed that to desist. But on the way forward, persons must understand that they belong to a disciplinary organization. So let's look at it, Madam President. A fireman's house was threatened by fire. He was on strike. He was able to call 2 other persons on strike to go to the fire station and commandeer the fire appliance. Isn't that illegal? That you are on strike and you can go to the fire station and commandeer a fire appliance? But I think it was good that he did that, because he saved his house and saved the houses of other persons in the area. Then we had a meeting being called in Dennery, where all firemen were supposed to report for duty at Dennery for a meeting. Who gave permission for you to be able to go to the fire station? A fire station we should not be at all, because you're on strike. All these things persons must take into consideration. And it's unfair for individuals to use this as a political tool. Because today, United Workers' Party is in office, we have been faced with it. Tomorrow, it may be the other side. And having allowed and sanctioned it by our actions and our words, then we are putting ourselves in peril. I want to end, Madam President, by indicating that we receive a correspondence from the President of the Fire Service Association. And remembering, Madam President, that the government gave a commitment to have a committee that will meet and within 30 days to make recommendations. But this is some of the content of the President's letter. The immediate removal of the exemption of firefighters from the provisions of the employer's transfer and relocation allowance. Immediate. But remember we said 30 days, but he's there demanding that we do it immediately. The exemption of the fire service authorized drivers from licensing fee to be done on or before April 1st, 2019. Demanding that the government does that. 5, to have about the above 4 measures confirmed in a cabinet conclusion by Friday, March 29th, 2019. Can any serious government allow persons to demand or dictate the agenda when we have given you our word in writing that a committee is going to be formed and you are part and parcel of that committee to report in 30 days, but to send a letter this way is in bad taste. And it should be condemned by everyone.
Minister, remember statements by ministers, it's not about debating and posing questions. So couch it so that you're making general, clear statements.
General statements, very
concise.
Well. But I wanted to make sure that the St. Lucia public understands what is happening and that we are going to be working with the fire service to make sure that the conditions of service are the very best that we can provide. Thank you.
Papers to be laid. Honorable Leader of Government Business and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister responsible for the public service.
Madam President, I beg to lay the following papers standing in my name. Statutory Instrument Number 3 of 2019, Fiscal Incentives, Excel Sign Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 4 of 2019, Price Control Amendment Number 1, Order. Statutory Instrument Number 5 of 2019, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, Number 1, Order. Statutory Instrument Number 6 of 2019, Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Court Proceedings Fees, St. Lucia Amendment Rules. Statutory Instrument Number 7 of 2019, Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information, Designation of Non-Reporting Financial Institution Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 8 of 2019, Automatic Exchange of Financial Account Information, Designation of an Excluded Account Amendment Order. Statutory Instrument Number 9 of 2019, Price Control Amendment Number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 10 of 2019, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1 Number 2 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 11 of 2019, Invest St. Lucia, Bichamp Miku Vesting Order. Statutory Instrument Number 12 of 2019, Tourism Stimulus Investments, Rockham Resorts Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 13 of 2019, Tourism Incentives, Soufre Hotwire Rides Incorporated Order. Statutory Instrument Number 14 of 2019, Tourism Incentives, RTC Investments St. Lucia Limited Order. Statutory Instrument Number 15 of 2019, Price Control Amendment Number 3 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 16 of 2019, Excise Tax Amendment Number 1, Schedule Number 1, Number 3 Order. Statutory Instrument Number 17 of 2019, Customs Duties Amendment of Schedule 4, Amendment Number 1 Order. Statutory Instrument number 18 of 2019, Customs Duties Amendment of Schedule 4, number 2 order. And finally, Madam President, Banana Industry Trust Corporation financial statements for the year ended March 31st, 2018. And the report is expressed in Eastern Caribbean dollars.
Bills. Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the first reading of a bill shortly entitled Money Laundering Prevention Amendment.
Money Laundering Prevention Amendment.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order 49-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Senators, the question is that Standing Order number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Honorable Leader of Government Business to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I beg to move the second reading of a bill shortly entitled Money Laundering Prevention Amendment. Madam President, the purpose of the bill is to amend the Money Laundering Prevention Act, Cap 1220, 12.20. Madam President, you would appreciate the fact that the financial system, the financial sector that we are operating under is under tremendous scrutiny and tremendous revisions with the laws, legislation. And a lot has to do with, Madam President, with the fact that we have signed to many agreements whereby we must uphold the law to ensure that we assist in ensuring that we prevent as much as possible what we refer to as money laundering and where we assist in the countering of financing terrorism. And Madam President, one of the ills of not complying is that of de-risking. And that has become a very important and serious piece of, I wouldn't say tactics, but penalties that are undertaken by the regulators. It's not a bad thing at all, Madam President, because if you are or have signed up to such agreements, you have to live up to them. And therefore, if you do not comply, you will get penalized by being de-risked. In other words, Madam President, financial institutions will terminate or restrict business with business relationships with clients who do not apply with these regulations. And you have an institution called the Financial Action Task Force. And they, one of the functions is to ensure that there is compliance with this requirement by the financial institutions. And one of the, or if the institution in the Caribbean that is responsible for ensuring that we comply with these requirements is that of the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force. Most times we refer to as CTAF. So this is the organization that is responsible for ensuring that the various institutions do comply with what we refer to as the risk-based approach of ensuring that there is full compliance with these regulations. So, Madam President, what happened is that the CTAF did some kind of evaluation or provided an evaluation report or did a report, an evaluation, Madam President, and provided a report of all Eastern Caribbean Currency Union member territories. And in that report, they found a few, I would say, weaknesses. And one of the weaknesses from that report, Madam President, or that evaluation, was that there was a lack of legal authority of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank as far as it's been able to conduct anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism, examination of banks in each of the ECCU territories. So here it is, Madam President, that we are supposed to be assisting in avoiding, I should say, the money laundering and the financing of terrorism. But here it is, our financial institutions lack, even the regulator, which is the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, lack that authority as far as assisting in the examinations of banks in each of that territory. And added to that, Madam President, the report also found that the ECCB could not issue and enforce sanctions for breaches of AML and CFT requirements. The main regulator, Madam President, does not have the enforcement that's required for such breaches. Madam President, another finding of that evaluation was that there was duplication and ambiguity of responsibilities between the ECCB and the Financial Intelligence Authority. That's our local regulator of the financial institutions. A lot of duplication and a lot of ambiguities of responsibilities between these two entities. The main regulator, the ECCB, and our local regulator, the Financial Intelligence Authority, FIA. Now, Madam President, I recall that during my, the attendance of the 80th meeting of the Monetary Council in 2016, that was in July 22nd, 2016, the Monetary Council made it clear, Madam President, that the ECCB should be given full responsibility for anti-money laundering and the counter-financing of terrorism of financial institutions licensed under the Banking Act number 3 of 2015. That was one of the outcomes of this important meeting of the Monetary Council. So since that time, Madam President, we had a lot of collaboration between the Ministry of Finance, the ECCB, and the FIU, our local regulator. And what came out of this, Madam President, the discussions with the various stakeholders, was that since it was revealed that the Banking Act number 3 of 2015 already gave the ECCB supervision relating to AML CFT, it was therefore decided, Madam President, that the role of the ECCB to be recognized in the Act, and the Act I'm referring to here, Madam President, is the Money Laundering Act, rather than providing full responsibility, Madam President, for money laundering and the terrorists' financing to the FIA. This means, Madam President, that the FIA will remain the body responsible for regulating financial institutions with respect to AML-CFT, but there would be collaboration with the ECCB. That's a very important matter, Madam President, very important improvement in this legislation. Therefore, Madam President, that being said, the specific amendments will, first of all, be done with Section 2, whereby, Madam President, we would be changing the definition of what we refer to as the central bank in that section, and to make it clear that in that act, that the central bank here refers to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. That's the first amendment, and that is done in Section 2. Section 6, Madam President, will see that it will acknowledge the function of the ECCB relating to AML-CFT, which provides for the powers of the FIA, and that is amended to permit the FIA to issue guidelines to financial institutions after consultation with the ECCB. So that, Madam President, amendment is done in Section 6. Now, Madam President, there will be a new section that will provide the duties of the ECCB. And that new section, Madam President, would be Section 41 to that Act. The new section would recognize the ECCB's ability to conduct an audit of a financial institution under the Banking Act No. 3 of 2015, and requires the ECCB to submit to the FIA information from the audit if an AML-CFT offense has been or is about to be committed. Madam President, further, the ECCB may also create and promote training in AML-CFT as required by the Act. Madam President, it is important that in carrying out its audit, the ECCB is restricted from having access to or assessing a report of a suspicious transaction, except a sanitized report. So, Madam President, I believe that these amendments, or proposed amendments, Madam President, will strengthen the authorities that are responsible for undertaking or ensuring that we comply with the AML-CFT requirements of the regulators. So I put forth, Madam President, and I bring this amendment to the Senate this morning.
Senators, the question is that Money Laundering Prevention Amendment Bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion, say no. Didn't we reach him? Right? He debated, yeah.
No, after he makes his presentation, you pose the question and see if anybody wants to debate then.
I did. I thought I did that.
No, you didn't.
Honorable Senators, the question is that the Money Laundering Prevention Amendment Bill be read a second time.
Okay. Nobody wants to debate, now you put the question, but you went right through.
I kind of looked at it. Agreed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to amend the Money Laundering Prevention Act, Cap 12.20.
Senators, we'll take it in clauses. Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 3.
Amendment of Section 2.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Clause 4.
Amendment of Section 6.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 5.
Insertion of new Section 41.
Clause 5 stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Senators, the question is that the committee rises and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senators, I beg to report that the Money Laundering Prevention Amendment Bill went through committee stage without amendments. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Senators, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the Money Laundering Prevention Amendment Bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia and by the authority of the same as follows. This act may be cited as the Money Laundering Prevention Amendment Act 2019.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the first reading of a bill shortly entitled Citizenship by Investment Amendment.
Citizenship by Investment Amendment.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order 49-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Senators, the question is that Standing Order number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Honorable Leader of Government Business to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. And I beg to move for the second reading of a bill shortly entitled Citizenship by Investment Amendment. Madam President, the amendments to the Citizenship by Investment Act, number 14 of 2015. There would be a few amendments to this act, Madam President. And the first of the amendments is that of Section 2. And Section 2, Madam President, makes reference to what we refer to as an authorized agent. And currently, Madam President, the authorized agent is that of the authorized agent is the Financial Services Regulatory Authority, FSRA, but we are changing the definition from the FSRA to that of the board. So the board, Madam President, becomes the authority that will provide the licensing of, will provide the licensing by the board instead of the Financial Services Regulatory Authority. Madam President, the reason for that is because under the current arrangement, the authorized agents, pursuant to legal opinion issued by the Attorney General, what happens is that the authorized agent license has always been issued by the board. So in order for us to amend this, we are saying that we would change that definition from that of the FSRA to that of the board itself, since they are the ones who have been actually providing the license, the authorized agent license. So we just basically regularize that authority. Madam President, the other amendment, by the way, that amendment will be done in Section 2. The other amendment, Madam President, will be done in, I think it is Section 36 of the Act. And what's happening here, Madam President, in terms of payment time frame, that section only makes reference to what we refer to as other fees. And it gives a maximum of 60 days for these other fees to be paid. But there is not a specific time frame for what we refer to as qualifying investment. So, as currently exists, the unit, Madam President, gives up to 60 days, similar to that of other fees. But what they have found out, Madam President, is that most of these qualifying investments, they are asking for 90 days, up to 90 days. So we are saying, okay, since we don't have a specific time frame as far as payment is concerned for the qualifying investments, and because we are getting the requests from these investments for 90 days, we are saying that we will make that payment time frame 90 days for qualifying investments. However, Madam President, we are cognizant of the fact that there may be some extenuating circumstances, Madam President, where there may be a request for extension of time to make a payment. And we are proposing, Madam President, a maximum extension of 90 days if this person is seen as one that is deserving of that extension. So basically, there is a period of 190 days for the payment time frame for qualifying investments. Now, Madam President, the Act does not provide a time frame also for qualifying dependents. What's a qualifying dependent, Madam President? It could be a newborn from an applicant who has become a citizen with a newborn, or a newlywed. So an individual who was given the citizenship may have a newborn. That person becomes a qualifying dependent. Or this person may get married, newlywed. This is another qualifying dependent. But that the Act as we speak, Madam President, does not give a time frame by which this new qualifying dependent can apply for that citizenship. So we are stating a time frame of 5 years. And that adjustment, Madam President, is done, or amendment is done in Section 36. Madam President, because we are undertaking the amendment now, we do not want to prejudice formally approved applicants. So we are moving this to the 1st of January 2016 to ensure that these individuals are not prejudiced. Now, Madam President, in this same section, we are amending or proposing that the minimum donation payable should be an additional fee of 25,000 US for each dependent other than a spouse, for whom the fee payable is proposed to be 35,000 US dollars. Madam President, an amendment will be undertaken in Section 37.8. And that's a very important amendment, Madam President, because, again, dealing with time frame. Currently, there is no time frame within which the ministers, and that is the minister responsible for CIP, shall approve or deny the application for citizenship by investment pursuant to a request for review. So we are proposing, Madam President, to bring a level of certainty to the process so that applicants know that a decision will be made within a set reasonable time frame. So in other words, Madam President, someone applies, it has to be reviewed, approved, or denied, but that individual has absolutely no idea how long it will take. So, Madam President, we are correct on this. Madam President, there will be a new section that will be added to this Act, and this new section will be Section 38. And that section, Madam President, basically is saying that if a qualifying dependent person who made an application subsequent to the grant of citizenship of the main applicant, if that person's citizenship is revoked, the dependent's citizenship is also revoked. That's very important, Madam President. Very important. So it means that that main applicant has to ensure he or she is a lawful citizen, or nothing is found after that can cause that revocation of that citizenship of that individual. So that's the new section that we're adding, Madam President. So all of these amendments that we are undertaking today is basically to assist in strengthening our already strong citizen by investment program here in St. Lucia. So, Madam President, I present these amendments to the Senate.
Honourable Senators, the question is that the Citizenship by Investment Amendment Bill be read a second time. Leader of Opposition Business, Senator Henry.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, Senators. Madam President, just before I add my brief remarks to this bill, permit me to add my voice to yours in recognizing the very well performance of our Special Olympians, and who returned to St. Lucia and came back with some medals. Also, Madam President, I wish to also recognize or add my voice and express sympathies to Honorable Dominic Fady. He's lost his family. And also, Madam President, the young man in Denry who passed in this suicide, as it's alleged, you know, his family, I wish to express my deep sympathies. And in this, for you, Madam President, you know, I think in the past 2 months, Madam President, I visited previously a family where a son committed suicide, and I've heard this other one, and through these chambers, Madam President, through you, I really want to send my deepest sympathies as a parent. I'm sure it's difficult time for persons who would live to know that their children have passed in this sort of way. The most I can say through these chambers, Madam President, is that we need to judge not and love more. That's what I would like to send to St. Lucians. Madam President, this piece of legislation, as it relates to the CIP, my only concern, even before any amendments or the inception of the CIP, what has been troubling my own perspective on citizenship as a St. Lucian is to what extent that it is aligned with our Constitution, because when I became a parliamentarian, I should have gone through the entire Constitution, but I read this section dealing with becoming a citizen of St. Lucia after 1979. And there are some interesting rules that especially from one generation to the next, or if you're born overseas. I am concerned, Madam President, that as we make changes to the CIP, as we go about selling or selling citizenship, so to speak, that persons who are becoming citizens through that means do not have an advantage over persons who are citizens through the normal way as stipulated in the Constitution. I think in listening to the brief presentation in the lower house, Madam President, I thought a point was trying to be made along those lines, that while somebody studying overseas had a child overseas, you've been facetious, sir. You're having a good laugh. And that child would have a second child, or my grandchild. That child would have to wait 7 years to become a citizen of St. Lucia. And in this case here, I'm here in 5 years. So, this is one of the concerns that I have. To what extent that it's not more advantageous to become a citizen of St. Lucia through the citizenship investment. The other point, Madam President, the final point that I need to share with this House, Madam President, and I hope you allow me to say it. It may not be directly to citizenship, but it has to do with identification of persons when you're a citizen of St. Lucia. And it had to do, Madam President, with the Puente program in Chile, where identification of Chileans was a main pillar of support to poor people. Because of the geographical spread of Chile, you find that there are a number of persons, while they were citizens, they were not identified. So there was a pillar of support under a social program to make them part of the system. And I keep reflecting that, Madam President, we had a short survey in St. Lucia, in the poorest communities of St. Lucia, under our own Puente program, which we call Kudme Setlisi, after the Chileans. And the result, which is tabled in a document prepared by UNICEF, there were poor people who indicated, when they said, what is it you would like to get out of poverty? They said, the passport. In the survey, persons indicated, I would like my passport. And the UNICEF found it rather interesting that in this part of the world, some poor people were literally asking, please don't give me money, give me my passport and I will get out of poverty. I'm saying this, Madam President, for us as a government to recognize, as we do citizenship by investment, how we look at the rights of our own citizens. Those persons who need to pay $63 to enter their name on their birth certificate, because it's not on their birth certificate, but it's on their baptismal certificate. Those persons who can be arrested but cannot vote because they do not have an ID card for one reason or the other. You know, just the whole issue of how we align citizenship by investment and put our people forward and give them priority and recognizing their rights as citizens. I just think we need to just to pose this as we go about selling citizenship. That is my contribution. Thank you, Madam President.
Honourable Senators, the question is that the Citizenship by Investment Amendment Bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to amend the Citizenship by Investment Act number 14 of 2015.
Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 3.
Amendment of Section 2.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Clause 4.
Amendment of Section 31.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 5.
Amendment of Section 36.
Clause 5 stands part of the bill. Clause 6.
Amendment of Section 37.
Clause 6 stands part of the bill. Clause 7.
Amendment of Section 38.
Clause 7 stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Senators, the question is that the committee rise and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senators, I beg to report that the Citizenship by Investment Amendment Bill went through committee stage without amendments. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be passed. The bill be read a third time and passed.
Senators, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the Citizenship by Investment Amendment Bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same, as follows. This act may be cited as the Citizenship by Investment Amendment Act 2019.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation Headquarters Agreement.
Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation Headquarters Agreement.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 49-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Senators, the question is that Standing Order number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Honourable Leader of Government Business to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the second reading of a bill shortly entitled Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation Headquarters Agreement. Madam President, the The bill for consideration is the Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation Headquarters Agreement Bill. Madam President, you would remember that, you may remember, Madam President, that there was an agreement between the government of St. Lucia and the Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation, that's referred to as CARILEC. And that agreement, Madam President, was actually signed in St. Lucia on 11th April 2018. Madam President, the main purpose of the agreement is to set up a regional secretariat to be known as CARILEC, to serve member utilities in the Caribbean, as well as regional and international associates and affiliates. Madam President, Article 4 of the agreement highlights the benefits of the establishment of CARILEC to St. Lucia and the Caribbean, as including the creation of direct employment, providing indirect employment for numerous technical and general service personnel in communications, transportation, housing and equipment, and obtaining foreign exchange. There is no doubt, Madam President, that the Headquarters Act and Agreement does bring tremendous benefit to the people of St. Lucia and to our economy in general. Madam President, privileges and immunities are provided to CARILEC under Article 8 of the agreement. These require exemptions from taxes, including customs duties, value-added tax, and service charge. Therefore, Madam President, domestic legislation is required to give effect to the agreement. The obligations expressed in the agreement with respect to exemptions from taxes may then be addressed in the different laws. And finally, Madam President, for the purpose of implementation, the minister responsible for infrastructure, ports, energy and labor may make regulations to this bill. Thank you, Madam President.
Senators, the question is that the Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation Headquarters Agreement Bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to give legal effect to and provide for the implementation of the Headquarters Agreement between the Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation and the Government of St. Lucia.
Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 3.
Force of law.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Clause 4.
Regulations.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 5. No. Schedule.
Headquarters Agreement between the Government of St. Lucia and CARILEC.
Schedule stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Senators, I now put the question that the committee, Senators, the question is that the committee rise and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senators, I beg to report that the Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation Headquarters Agreement Bill went through committee stage without amendment. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Senators, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation Headquarters Agreement Bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same as follows. This Act may be cited as the Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation Headquarters Agreement Act 2019.
Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Madam President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Amendment.
Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment.
Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 49-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Senators, the question is that Standing Order number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, the purpose of this bill is to amend the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, Chapter 8.01, referred to as the Act. The background 3.1, due to the initiative by the Castries Constituency Council, namely the Council, to install parking meters in the city of Castries. The Act was examined to ensure that its provisions permitted this activity to be carried out by the Council. It was observed that Part 9 of the Act, which deals with on-street parking, contained the relevant provisions to enable the use of parking meters. However, there are some anomalies in the Act that need to be addressed to make provisions in the Act more appropriate for the efficient use of parking meters. The identification of the Council as a corporation was an issue that had to be addressed, since the Constituency Councils Act, Chapter 17.19, did not refer to it as a corporation. It was also evident that there were no definitions for some of the terms used frequently in the Act, including parking authority and regulated parking area. As it relates to the definition of responsible authority, the definition referred to a public road vested in the corporation. The Act also gives the corporation powers in a regulated parking area. The result is that no other constituency council would be able to control the parking in its constituency. If another constabulary council had to be considered, it would require an additional amendment being made to the Act. There were other provisions in the Act that did not promote consistency in administering on-street parking. For example, the reserve parking permit and the special parking permit could be presented in regulations and used by all parking authorities, and the detention fees applicable to all parking authorities. The reference to cooperation in the Act is changed to the Castries Constituency Council to be in keeping with the Constituency Councils Act, Chapter 17.19. The Castries Constituency Council is recognized under the bill as the parking authority for public roads. Under its control, through the replacement of the definition of responsible authority under the Act. Definition for the terms parking authority and regulated parking area were inserted in the Act as well. A new provision is added to the Act to provide the Minister with the power to designate another constituency council as a parking authority if the Minister considered it necessary to do so. A parking authority is authorized to purchase and use parking meters when collecting the parking fees under the Act. The bill also permits the making of regulations regarding parking meters. The Act is amended to stipulate that the form of the reserved parking permit and the special parking permit under the Act are specified in regulations made under the Act. Parking authorities are presently empowered to set detention fees under the Act. This power is given to the Minister so that all parking authorities would be charging the same fee under the Act. Thank you, Madam President.
Senators, the question is that the Motor Vehicles and Traffic Amendment Bill be read a second time. Senator Henry?
Very briefly, just some questions, Madam President, through you. Madam President, I understand that we are developing, there's some special development issues, and the problem with traffic and motor vehicle it's a problem, or we need to manage it. But I'm concerned of this trend, and I'm trying to project how far will this go in terms of what we're doing, especially the fact that in this act, I think projection is almost been mentioned, that apart from the city, that the ministers may grant such license to other parts of, to other constituencies. And I recall some time ago I saw tickets being issued on Marshall Road. And I reflected on this, and I said that when you're living in Marshall, the place that you're most likely to park is alongside the road. And if you start looking at Monday, so I'm trying to envisage the city of Castries and its environs. You know, will there be a time when we will see parking meters going up Mondidor, you know, going up Marshall Road, and how do we put this within a total plan, special plan for our people and how we manage our city? There are some business people who own their property on the roadside and are doing business. Of course, there's paid parking, but how limited it is. And to what extent that some of the facilities that, as it relates to metered parking, enhance business in the city and provide equal footing for persons who are not doing too well but have small businesses around the place. The Central Bakery, when I think of Amma Bakery and the parking that takes place there, you know, I do not have a physical plan in mind, but this bakery has been there God knows how long, and there's always some parking taking place on that part of Marion Street. So I would hope that the government would not approach the issue of parking just to facilitate what is happening currently in the city, but it should be part of a holistic plan, a holistic physical plan, spatial plan that's well informed, and there's consultation throughout. That will not kill our city. I am concerned about that, Madam President, that we need to create revitalization We all know when people move out of the city, what happens. If you go to 41st, what takes place in 41st after 6 o'clock. So you do not want people to move away from the city. You want life in the city. And for you to have life in the city where it is safe, you need people in the city. So we need to look at the issue of pedestrian, motor vehicle, and who actually comes to the city, who the city belongs to, who are your main occupants of the city. They are not the people who are living in Grosley or in Rodney Bay. They are the people from Marshall, Hospital Road, and the environs. We are the ones growing up that walk the city street to be watching in the window and see what is being sold. So I'm thinking of that. We need to develop the city for the people so that we keep our city vitalized, we keep our city safe because there are people in the city, and at the same time we develop taking all of those things into consideration. That's just my concern.
Senator Mangal.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Good morning, fellow senators. Madam President, let me take this opportunity, first of all, to congratulate you as head of the committee, the special committee for Independence Day. I think that you did a very fantastic job. We have seen in St. Lucia independence celebrations that went beyond our expectations and second to none in the past there. Yeah. So congratulations on a job well done. And I do hope that you will continue taking up the challenge in the future on behalf of the government of St. Lucia in special events that may be coming in the future. Madam President, I also want to take the opportunity to congratulate the Special Olympic team on the winning medals in the Special Olympic Games and the way that they have done their contribution. So congratulations to them and to the Ministry of Sports for organizing and helping them in participating in this tournament. I also would like to take the opportunity to express my deepest sympathy to the Honorable Dominic Fede for the passing of his father. I think that the funeral is tomorrow, I've been told, and I would, in Rosalie, I certainly would make it my duty to attend, and I think, of course, our various senators should lend support in this trying time of need. Madam President, I fully support the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill in giving the Castries City Council the powers to be able to install parking meters within certain areas in the city of Castries. Madam President, if you've noticed what has been happening in the past, persons who may have businesses within the city and persons who may want to occupy certain spots within the city for a lengthy period of time would simply make it their duty to leave their homes very early in the morning and to park their vehicles at a certain location for the entire day. Some of them, recognizing how difficult it is to obtain a parking once you have moved from that area, would actually go and take a bus or hire a secondary vehicle to take them around while they occupy that spot for the entire day. What that has done is to prevent persons who are looking to carry out business within the central business district of Castries the opportunity to be able to afford a parking space and to do so. There are other persons, Madam President, who would actually put in temporary unauthorized barriers within certain areas to highlight and to demarcate illegally so that this parking area should be left for me and for me alone in order for us to be able to park. This in itself has seen the movement of persons wanting to do business in the central business district opting for other locations. So you're going to find that maybe Rodney Bay might be more attractive, although we get into the same situation in Rodney Bay. But other areas, rural areas, might become more attractive. And therefore, you would have to have more commute, probably by foot or also by other forms of transportation to move from those rural areas to do some kind of business in Castries and to go back to those rural areas to continue doing business. But I believe, Madam President, that what is happening here will help regenerate the city of Castries. Because for once and for all, there will be parking available for persons willing to do business in the city to do so. And I have never seen a piece of legislation where St. Lucians will be required to pay a fee for a service, being so thankful and very happy about parking meters coming into the city, because they recognize that there is the need for some form of controlled parking within the city of Castries. The advantages, Madam President, are many. It will also help the Castries Constituency Council to raise much needed revenue for its operations. It will also help the Castries car park in the Conway area. Persons will have then who would not be able to, or persons who carry out business with the city of Castries might then opt for contractual better arrangement with the Castries car park for them to be able to park their vehicles in that area. It will also help the various businesses itself, Madam President, in better regulating loading and offloading zones within the Castries, within the Central Business District. A number of times you find that persons are parked within areas of businesses and there is very little time for persons to be able to load and offload their goods in that area. So instead of someone going in and occupy a space, and I will use the same typical example that my brother on the opposite side used, maybe next to Armour Bakery. Instead of occupying all of the parking lots around Armour Bakery, and then you find that Armour itself may want to load its vehicle with bread to take to somewhere else and doesn't have a space to do so. Armour Bakery now can determine that I'm going to pay a parking meter for 1 hour for me to be able to move in, park my vehicle, carry out my loading operations, and to move. And that is for the smaller businesses like Armour Bakery who may not have a designated loading area or loading zone demarcated for that purpose. So it will help regulate a lot of the issues that we have within the Central Business District. And I believe, Madam President, it also falls in line with the quadrant plan that we have for St. Lucia. The particular plan that we have for St. Lucia and for the redevelopment of Castries. In redeveloping Castries, you need to have more green areas. You need to have more pedestrian areas. You need to have areas where you could be able to congregate without having much of this congestion. So having parking terminals within the city of Castries will help. The argument is being said by the opposition whether this may not increase for us to be able to park Mondidon or have parking meters in Mondidon and have parking meters in Marshall and so on. Come on. I mean, you know, I do not see Mondidon as being a buzzing central business district area as yet. So I mean, obviously, I do not see this extending to Mondidon. But certainly, Madam President, the vision of this government is to ensure that within this legislation, there is space to allow the minister to be able to designate other areas, other communities, other towns, other villages, okay, as special areas for parking meters to be placed. Rodney Bay, for example, is fast becoming an area where we may require to look into doing the very same thing. So once again, bravo to the Minister of Home Affairs and to the government and people of St. Lucia for taking on this initiative. I think it is a plus and it is a win for every one of us. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Gideon.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to share with you in issuing our condolences to Minister Fede and also to the parents of the young guy in Denver who committed suicide through allegedly hanging and so on. With the bill here, the motor vehicles and road traffic amendment, I have a troubling thought that I want to share. And that is, whilst we are looking to empower the constituency council of the city with the whole parking meter undertaking, I have a question that bothers me, and that deals with education. Before these meters are installed, would there be any prior education or sensitization program for persons in St. Lucia? We have drivers, yes, they may be able to drive a vehicle and sit and pass an exam for a driver's license. And maybe they may really travel into Castries to do business. In the event that these persons would come into Castries, they may want to say, well, I'm going to adopt the same habit that I park by Parliament for a while and run around and do my business without the knowledge of maybe there being a parking meter somewhere around that they could go in, purchase a ticket, put it on their vehicle, whether it is for an hour or 2 hours, and then return, collect their vehicles, and go on the business. I'm just saying that I'm hoping that these persons will be afforded the opportunity to know whether it is through island-wide education, whether it is through just radio or television or something, that these persons would have been given the exposure to knowing that on X amount of day, as of this day, this is what will be existing in the city of Castries. So that persons would not come about and say, you know what, I have no idea that there are already parking meters installed, and so on. And secondly, in terms of signage, we are hoping that there will be proper and adequate signage to more or less complement the parking meters. Okay? As I said, maybe I may have to go all the way down a certain area to collect a ticket, return, and put it on my vehicle. Okay? So, I am just sounding just a simple word of one, would there be a national education program leading to the installation of the parking tickets and meters? Would there be? Also, would there be, for example, persons, maybe there are people who, they drive, but maybe to utilize, to punch and to get, they may have no idea as to how to use the machine, and so on. So while we are saying it may look like a good thing that persons are ready to move into the city, install parking meters and so on, there may be a number of drivers who may have no idea as to how they can retrieve a ticket from the parking meter to install on their vehicles to identify that, yes, I've paid for parking for X amount of time and so on. And then I am free to do my business and come back without being charged, or that my vehicle is towed away and I have no understanding as to why it is towed away and so on. So I'm just saying this, that this should be done before the installation of these devices. Thank you.
Senators, the question is that the Motor Vehicles and Traffic Amendment Bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to amend the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, Cap 8.01.
Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 3.
Amendment of Section 127.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Clause 4.
Amendment of Section 128.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 5.
Amendment of Section 132.
Clause 5 stands part of the bill. Clause 6.
Amendment of Section 133.
Clause 6 stands part of the bill. Clause 7.
Amendment of Section 137.
Clause 7 stands part of the bill. Clause 8.
Amendment of Section 138.
Clause 8 stands part of the bill. Clause 9.
Amendment of Section 144.
Clause 9 stands part of the bill. Clause 10.
Amendment of Section 165.
Clause 10 stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Senators, the question is that the committee rise and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senators, I beg to report that the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill went through committee stage without amendment. Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Madam President, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Senators, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same as follows. This act may be cited as the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Act 2019.
Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Madam President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled Castries Constituency Council.
Castries Constituency Council.
Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 49-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Senators, the question is that Standing Order number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye.
Aye.
As many as are of the contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Madam President, I beg to move the second reading of a bill shortly entitled Castries Constituency Council. Madam President, the purpose of the bill is to provide for municipalities the Castries Constituency Council and establish the Castries City Police. The mayor and citizens of the city of Castries were incorporated in the Castries Corporation Act number 22 of 1967, namely the corporation, to be managed by a council for the corporation under that act. The Castries Corporation Act number 22 of 1967 was repealed by the Constituencies Council Act, Chapter 17.19 in 2012. However, there were gaps in the Constituency Councils Act, Chapter 17.19, which meant that the Castries Corporation Act number 22 of 1967 was not entirely repealed. Consequently, in carrying out its functions, the Council has been enforcing the Castries Corporation Act number 22 of 1967 and the Constituency Council Act, Chapter 17.19. One of the main issues that arose was the legal status of the Council, as the corporation was incorporated by the Castries Corporation Act number 22 of 1969. Conversely, the Constituency Council Act, Chapter 17.19, contains no provision on the status of the Castries Constituency Council. Additionally, several pieces of legislation refer to the Council as the corporation. One example is the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, Chapter 8.10, that refers to the corporation as a parking authority for the purposes of a regulated parking area. A consequential difficulty that the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, Chapter 8.01, highlighted was in relation to the city of Castries and the constituencies under the control of the Castries Constituency Council under the Constituency Councils Act, Chapter 17.19. In Part 2 of the bill, the Council is provided with the power to appoint staff and to be able to appoint a Chief Executive Officer who serves as the Town Clerk to the Council. Under Part 3 of the bill, the Castries City Police is created. The appointment of the Castries City Police officers is undertaken in consultation with the Commissioner of Police. The part also takes into account the powers and immunities of a police officer under the Police Act, Chapter 14.01. There are provisions for the arms, ammunition, badges, and uniforms to be assigned to the Castries City Police officers. The provisions in Part 5 of the bill ensures protections of the persons working with the Council and provides for the institution of proceedings and the making of bylaws by the Council so that it can effectively carry out its mandate. Madam President, this bill gives the City Council the power to appoint police officers, city police, but it is at the discretion and behest of the Commissioner of Police, who then institutes the oath of office to that individual. The Commissioner, in his own deliberation, may or may not grant the oath to any particular individual. And one of the reasons for giving the city police the powers of arrest and the immunities enjoyed by ordinary police officers is to allow them the latitude or the ability to involve themselves when they see crimes or offenses being committed outside the constituency's boundaries. So, for example, a city police officer in the Grosley area on a Friday night, seen an infraction being committed, does not have to wait for a police officer to take action. The mere fact that he has the powers of arrest, he can initiate an arrest there and hand over that person to the police officer. So that enables or assists the police officers in policing the country a little better. So that's the intention, just almost like the port police officers. They too have powers of arrest, but they only have powers of arrest on the port. And it's the intention that they can have the powers of arrest on the outside, because they do the very same training as police officers and have the same immunities and privileges. So this was the intention for the amendments of the Castries Constituency Council Bill. Thank you.
Senators, the question is that the Castries City Council Bill be read a second time. Senator Ferdinand.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, colleagues. Madam President, before I make my contribution regarding this bill, I beg your leave to express condolences to a very special family and associate and gentleman. When I woke up this morning, I got a message that a teacher, colleague of mine, passed away suddenly. We had some history, attended school together and so on. He was a member of the teaching staff of the Beaufort Comprehensive Campus B, formerly Campus B, now Larry Schuss, Mr. Christopher Mooney, a young man in the prime of his life, succumbed this morning. It's significant for me to mention because of his tremendous contribution in several areas of life, in the church, in the community, in music, as well as English. And I know that his family, the Mooney family, and the staff of the Beaufort Comprehensive, as well as the Pero Combined School where his wife works, and many of us in the South who have interacted with him are suffering a great loss. So I express condolences to his family and hope that in these difficult times they can see through this tragedy. I also join the rest of us in expressing condolences to our colleague, Minister Fede, on the passing of his dad, and do wish that he too can go through and pull through this. I want to congratulate, along with our other colleagues, the Special Olympians. As an educator, Madam President, I appreciate the significance of achievements of people who are considered differently abled, who have disabilities, or who have special needs. And we sometimes do not recognize the amount of effort and sacrifice that has to be made, both by persons who work with them and they themselves, to achieve the things that they do achieve. I'm hoping that as a government, as a people, we continue to pay homage and continue to recognize in a much bigger way the achievements of such persons with special needs, not only Olympians, but in other areas of life. And so I join all of us in congratulating all of our Special Olympians for making us proud and for their tremendous achievement on behalf of our country. To the bill, Madam President, we know that when we come to this Honorable House, it is a place where we pass legislation, we amend legislation, and it is a place where whatever decisions we make regarding passing or amending legislation is intended to improve situations within whatever department that the legislation is supposed to take care of, and in some cases fix problems that may have occurred, maybe because of lack of foresight or because of the changes in time. As we would know, Madam President, there are times when in a certain era, there are certain laws and certain behaviors that appear to be okay, but in a different time they become, you know, obsolete, or they do not apply, or in wisdom or in hindsight we have to go back and fix them. So I welcome amending legislation. But when we do that, we have to be very mindful of the possible implications of those amendments and those changes. I will not focus too much, Madam President, on the specifics of the City Council legislation, but since this relates to the constituency councils, I just wanted to highlight a few areas that I think we need to be mindful of as we seek to pass this piece of legislation. Madam President, we know that there are some experiences in the past that we should have learned from, and going forward, when we seek to legislate, especially legislate activities of constituency councils like the CCC and other constituency councils around the country, that we must be mindful of. I want to suggest something that I have always said, even when the idea of local government first came in, that the persons who are going to serve on constituency council boards and whatever you call it, that these individuals, I believe, is my opinion, and I've felt that way before, and I still feel that way, that successive governments need to take heed of the process that is used to appoint those persons. I believe that the appointment by hand-picking persons may not necessarily be the best approach. And I really strongly advocate for local government elections. I think it's one of the ways that we can avoid finding ourselves having to go and change legislation because we want to do certain things. I believe also, Madam President, that we should take heed of the actions of previous councils and be careful that we are not empowering or legislating things that can cause members or employees of the constituency councils to engage in activities that are wrong, but or that are not, let us say, not wise, but seem to be legislated. I was privy to just yesterday observing a certain news item about the actions of a city police officer on social media. It was very unfortunate, and I don't think you can say that the city council is responsible for his behavior or would have approved of it. However, I believe that when we see that kind of, I'm not saying it's okay. I want to be precise and stand corrected. But let me refer to the incident involving persons who were associated or who could have seen in the video the presence of the city police. And I think it would be a good thing to kind of distinguish and make sure that it is clear that this is not the actions of the city police. But when we see those kinds of things, and I'm sure that as I speak, there are lots of St. Lucians who are associating with that. And so we must make sure that these kinds of things, when we pass legislation or when we empower our officers or employees of constituency councils, that we don't give the impression that we are giving them more power or more authority than they should have. Madam President, I believe that the employees themselves, not just the person serving on the councils, but people who work in constituency councils and in the city council, they need to be able to, when we give them additional power or we give them additional latitude, we also have to have legislation or measures that can protect them. Because every time you give someone a responsibility, there is always the possibility of liability. And so we should also make sure that the legislation has clauses that can protect the persons who are given the responsibility to carry out those actions. I heard the minister mention power of arrest. And that's a very sensitive thing, because there are times when arrests are necessary. And law enforcement, I am a law-abiding citizen, and I believe that there are times you need to, even citizens, engage in arrest, citizens arrest. But I believe when you confer power, the ability upon someone to be able to effect an arrest, you must ensure, and I did hear the minister mentioned training of the port police. Very much so. If people are going to be involved in arresting other people, they need to have a certain amount of training. And I'm saying that if the city police is going to be given the power of arrest, and I heard also in some of the clauses mention of charging and so on, they need to be trained, and I think the minister, having been a trained police officer, would appreciate the importance of the proper training. Trained very well so that they are aware of what they're doing and they understand the implications of their actions. So while we don't want to limit and to suffocate or to stifle the actions of the employees of the city council, we don't want to make the city police feel that they are powerless, no. But we want them to know, or to know that the actions, first of all, they are protected by the law, and that they are properly trained to undertake some of those actions. Because I am sure that the police training school would have done a certain amount of work with the officers, the other police officers, the regular ones, so that when they are taking up their responsibility, they are guided by certain legislation and certain actions. But when it comes to the city police, I am not certain that the training that they receive currently is adequate for some of the additional responsibilities that they are going to be given and the additional authority that this bill seems to be affording them. So, Madam President, for me, it is just saying that we should just act cautiously, because whenever you legislate things, there are always implications, and you do not want the persons who are empowered to carry out that action, or those upon which the action will be taken, find themselves in any way disadvantaged, liable, or unfortunate victims of what we could call victims of circumstance. So I wanted to just mention those on a point of caution, and I hope that it is taken in good faith, and going forward, that any additional amendments to this type of legislation will take into account some of what I have suggested. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Henry.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, just briefly to speak to this, to add my voice to this piece of legislation dealing with the city policing, but also specifically in terms of the constituency of the city of Castries. Just to share with you, Madam President, I recall prior to the establishment of the Act recognizing our constituency councils, we had our administrative regions or administrative districts that we operated by, like the district of Mikud, Denry, Castries, for some years. And those of us probably who worked in the service then would recall we had this. And it was troubling, Madam President, regions that we also had. The Ministry of Education really were operating differently. The Ministry of Health had their own regions, and as well as the Ministry of Planning. And if you speak with the statistical department, they would tell you the kind of problems we encounter as we interact with each department as it relates to the geographies of our problems. So if you were speaking to the Ministry of Education and you were dealing with education for the city of Castries, whether it means the same thing to the infrastructure department or the police department. And I think it's important, Madam President, that as we look at this piece of legislation and as we empower an entity, we need to reflect on to what extent that we are harmonizing agencies of government that provide service, and what services that need to be mainstream and not be given a constituency label. When I think of what is happening as it relates to city policing, Madam President, I am looking at it from a state police and a federal, and having the federal police in the US, for example. And as my colleague was making his presentation, and of course he had to rightfully be corrected and saying these were not city police men, you know, already now it jumps at you that if somebody is effecting some action in the city, you know, the person may not be city police. And who should be the one handling certain, and to what extent, what are we communicating to the citizens of the city of Castries? It can become sensitive. More importantly, Madam President, I just want us to reflect on the city of Castries with city policing and Grosley, for example. We spoke of the powers of arrest. I know that Grosley have been clamoring for city status for some time now. And when you look at the development of Grosley and the Rodney Bay environs, you would ask, are they poised in probably looking at a similar arrangement? Madam President, we need to develop this country in a way that we do not have too many layers and start to duplicate of very costly services to our country. I am concerned about this. Whereas I am happy that it is, according to the senator responsible for national security minister, did indicate that it is it is the power, the powers resides with the Commissioner of Police, and it is not automatic. But I noticed that there is a lot happening in the city, a lot of powers being given at the city level, and it concerns me. One in revenue collection, we spoke of this, powers of arrest. And I know, Madam President, these discussions are within the corridors of government for the longest while. Grosley would say that we should collect property tax because the value of our estate resides in the south of the island. And then I asked the question, to what extent will, of course in terms of the geographical spread of Grosley, if Grosley based on the constituency of Grosley, to what extent, you know, that they too may generate revenue if they collect taxes, and to what extent it kind of disenfranchises central government and its responsibility. Madam President, these issues, we cannot just proceed with these things without taking that into consideration. And the other one that came to mind is responsibility for our roads and repairs, road repairs. And at what point do a constituency, as we start to give them more responsibility and an authority, you know, as we give them more authority, we expect them to be more responsible. So then, what time do we say that they're responsible for this? You know, I know back then, City Council was also responsible for the roads in the city. There was a time they were the ones responsible for carrying out potholing. You know, and the issue of the collection of revenue in the city has always been a problem as to who collect the property tax. In fact, I suspect CCC and the Inland Revenue still collecting. There's some that Inland Revenue is collecting, and there's some CCC. So that in itself is still an issue. But what about if Grosley said, then I collect property tax for Grosley, and then the other constituencies decide that they're collecting revenue for the various constituencies. Then what happens to the central collection of revenue and property tax? Will you have each constituency council collecting revenue? And what is the structure that needs to be in place for that to happen? So, Madam President, I'm making these observations that these are things we should consider as we move forward, because it could become a problem for us as we execute development of our various constituencies. The intention of Central Castries, it's an area that we need to be careful with. I think we're moving, I'm not too sure if we're moving in the right direction, because if we cannot replicate this in the other constituencies, I think you would have a situation where something needs to be spread nationally is being concentrated in the city. So for example, Madam President, Babono exists between two administrative regions, Grosile and Castries. But Babono is a constituency district. You know, so you ask, should they be part of, there's always been a police station in Grosile, and now we have a fire station in Babono. You know, we have a fire station in Grosile. You understand? So you're asking, but in Castries East, we have our police station. In Castries Central, we do not have a police station. No, the headquarters is in Castries East. Marsha has another police station. Currently in Castries Central, there's no police station. Police headquarters is not in, police headquarters is on the other side of the road. I'm talking about the geographical boundaries. If you talk about constituency, because we are talking about geographies of development. And if you take the boundaries as it's supposed to be, then that's what we're talking about. You understand? So I'm saying, Madam President, that our administrative regions, whether it's education, it should, when we overlay our educational regions, we overlay our policing and security regions, when we overlay our developmental plans, we all should be speaking the same thing. And our health regions, also we should be looking at in terms of persons speaking the same thing. So when they're talking to each other, we know what we're talking about. So I think for this city policing, it is one that concerns me. Yes, we're moving forward, but I think it is one that we need to be very careful with, because it might be difficult for us to replicate this elsewhere, because it could come at a high cost and for our budget, for our country. That's
Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Just wanted to respond.
Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I want to thank the members of the opposition for giving some of the ideas. But I'm afraid that persons seem to fear change and advancement. We talked about, and Senator Gideon is correct, we talked about the state power and the federal power and so on. It's almost similar to what's happening here. The city police deals specifically with the city. That does not take away the powers and privileges of the regular police officer. They are assistants to the police officers. Police officers can be everywhere. So by augmenting the police with the city police, we, for a fact, are making the city of Castries a little safer. We know thousands of tourists on a regular basis find themselves in the city of Castries. And based on that fact, which is our main economic driver, that we must protect it. It has been proven over the last couple of years that the city police have been in existence, that there has been a reduction in visitors harassment and crime against our visitors. So the police officers in the city are doing a good job. They are trained by our regular police officers. They receive almost all the very same training that police officers have received. But the time is a little different, because we deal with a lot more when it comes to a police officer. And then you look at a place like Grosile, and Senator Joachim Henry is correct. There may be a time that Grosile has to have its own police, because the police officers at Grosile, just about 6 or 7 police officers are at the police station. They have to report to housebreaking, homicides, vehicular accidents, and really do not have the time and ability to deal with a street party or what is happening in the area of Grocery. So we are evolving, and this will happen. So all I am saying is that as long persons are given powers, there is the ability for persons to abuse the powers. But there is a redress. There is redress. As you were saying, Senator from the opposite side, that the incident that you saw on social media, you just saw a clipping. You have not had the true facts of what has happened. So you just really can't debate it and talk about that abuse of power and so on. By making the statement of abuse of power, you are indicating that something may have gone amiss there. So let us investigate, and we will be able to come back to you and tell you what has happened. There is a police station in Central Castries. There you said abuse. But all of us, from all specters of life, the opportunity is there for abuse of power. And we have to be mindful that there are regulations and persons that can take action against those individuals. So the Commissioner of Police has the powers to discipline the city police, because he's the one who administers the oath to them. And there it is that he goes through a process of identifying these individuals, training them, and then making up his mind whether those persons are sufficiently trained or have the character and ability to serve our nation. So I understand what was said to us by the opposition, and we're going to take it. And I like Senator Gideon Henry saying that we need to get some of our other functions like the education and so on together and see how best we can deal with it. But I think that this piece of legislation will assist us in policing our city. The time will come that we will have to assist police other areas in a more stringent area. Based on the development plans of this government, Vieux Fort will soon be an area where we have to maybe deploy those sort of police officers to assist the regular police officers. So thank you for your recommendations and observations. But I think this piece of legislation is very essential at this time, and I'm happy that you all understand the reason for passing the Castries Constituency Council bill. Yeah, don't worry,
Honourable Senators, the question is that the Castries Constituency Council bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to provide for municipalities, the Castries Constituency Council, and to establish the Castries City Police and for related matters.
Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill.
Aye.
Clause 3.
Binding of the Crown.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill.
Aye.
Clause 4.
Application.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill.
Aye.
Part 1, clauses 5 to 17.
Municipality and incorporation.
Part 1, clauses 5 to 17 stand part of the bill. Part 2, clauses 18 to 21.
Officers of the Castries Constituency Council.
Part 2, clauses 18 to 21 stand part of the bill. Part 3, clauses 22 to 32.
Castries City Police.
Part 3, clauses 22 to 32 stand part of the bill. Part 4, clauses 33 to 39.
Finance.
Part 4, clauses 33 to 39 stand part of the bill. Part 5, clauses 40 to 42.
Miscellaneous.
Part 5, clauses 40 to 42 stand part of the bill. Schedule.
Section 15, oath and/or affirmation.
schedule stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Senators, the question is that the committee rise and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senators, I beg to report that the Castries Constituency Council Bill Senators, I beg to report that the Castries Constituency Council Bill went through committee stage without amendment. Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Madam President, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Senators, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the Castries Constituency Council Bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same as follows. This Act may be cited as the Castries Constituency Council Act 2019.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I move that the Senate stand adjourned, sine die.
Senators, the question is that the Senate do stand adjourned, sine die. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
As many as are of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Sitting adjourned.
Huh?